Okay, so it's live now, and then I'm giving the link, Control C, and I will paste in WhatsApp. Huh?
Yes.
Okay, so I pasted this in control room WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So we should start now.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I will also please.
Yes.
Fine, we can start now.
I would request Professor Verma to switch on his video. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. So we are
Okay.
starting now. So good morning, dear friends. I, Dr. Pooja from CSIO Chandigarh, along with my INYAS colleague, Dr. Pankaj from IUAC New Delhi, welcomes you in the fifth webinar of INSA-INYAS webinar series, Vigyan, Setu. As you all are aware, in this series, we invite eminent speakers established in their field to speak on various aspects of science. And it's also a platform wherein you can put your questions and queries, which are addressed by the speaker on related topics. As we all know that COVID-19 has forced our full R&D infrastructure to find solutions for its management and control. However, it also made several young scholars stay back home, while at many research labs, they are not fully functional. So there are challenges to bring lab work on track while maintaining the social distancing and following strict norms. So today, to speak on all these concerns, we have with us Professor Sandeep Verma, Secretary SERB, as our speaker. He will talk upon implication of COVID-19 on Indian R&D landscape. So I request our viewers to post their question related to the topic on YouTube chat, which we'll be taking with the speaker after the talk. First, I request Dr. Chandrasekhar Sharma, Chair INYAS, to give opening remarks and formally introduce our speaker to the audience. Dr. Sharma, please.
Thanks, Pooja. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this fifth webinar of INSA-INYAS Vigyan Setu webinar series. Our last four webinars were highly successful in terms of viewership and also the active participation of all the listeners in the question answer sessions. Today, in the fifth webinar, we have a very important topic before us, implications of COVID-19 on Indian R&D landscape. As we all know that due to COVID-19, all academic and research institutes have closed down since mid-March, and we are still waiting for restarting of our R&D activities. In this scenario, it's very challenging for students, researchers, faculty, and PIs to resume the normalcy in their labs. Through this webinar, we all would like to know the plan and the strategy in this direction from none other than the person who is at the helm of the affairs in setting up the infrastructure and environment for scientific pursuit in India. So it's honor and also a great pleasure to me to introduce our today's speaker, Professor Sandeep Verma. Professor Sandeep Verma is a professor of chemistry at Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and is currently serving as the Secretary, Science and Engineering Research Board, New Delhi. He obtained PhD from University of Illinois Medical Center, Chicago, and subsequently held postdoc positions at the Johns Hopkins University Medical Institutions and Max Planck Institute for Experimental Medicine. He is also an adjunct professor of biological science and bioengineering and affiliated faculty at Center for Nanoscience and Center for Environmental Science and Engineering at IIT Kanpur. His research interests are in the areas of chemical biology, antimicrobial resistance, and bio-inspired materials. He is a recipient of Shanti Shuru Patnagar Prize, Goyal Prize, Swart Jayanti Fellowship, DAE SRC Outstanding Investigator Award, BM Birla Science Prize, and more recently, the Distinguished Alumnus Award of Banaras Hindu University in 2020. Dr. Verma is an elected fellow of the Indian National Science Academy, Indian Academy of Sciences, and National Academy of Sciences, India. He is an associate editor of Chemical Communications and is on editorial advisory board of Cell Chemical Biology, Chem Biochem, and Journal of Peptide Science. With this, I thank Professor Verma again for joining us today. Thank you.
I now formally request Professor Verma to put his views on today's topic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me start by first paying homage to our martyred soldiers in Jammu and Kashmir. This is a very sober occasion for us, and we as a nation are collectively in great debt to their unparalleled valor and the highest sacrifice that they have given for our great nation. With these words now, I would like to get into today's topic by thanking each and every one of you, Dr. Sharma, for these words of introduction, Dr. Pankaj, Dr. Pooja, for organizing this wonderful series and taking us into the realm of R&D activities in India against or around the COVID infection. As we know, that the SARS coronavirus infection has spread quite rapidly around the world, and India has been affected quite badly, and the pandemic situation has been created because of coronavirus infection. So in the initial phases, when we were trying to grapple with the situation, we had little idea about this virus. There were no diagnostic kits available. There were no chemotherapeutic strategies available to counter this virus. And of course, a vaccine is really much far in the pipeline. So what we have done is that we have very quickly risen to the occasion as a nation. We put our R&D practices in place. We try to sort of reduce the vulnerability in country by taking the measures that the government did by lockdown, which sort of gave us enough time to come up with strategies with which we can counter this pandemic and essentially give time to our first responders how to tackle with the situation, how to tackle with infected patients, what are the best medical practices in critical care that can be implemented to counter the infection, to make sure that as less as possible morbidities would occur because of this infection. So it is very interesting to see that, not only pure scientific R&D, but also these medical practices that are very robust in India came into being. And not to talk about the economic slowdown, we all realize the kind of economic slowdown that has been brought by this virus, right? So as if you would have been following the news, that the group of G20 group of countries have promised about $7 trillion of support towards the pandemic. And our own Prime Minister, our Honorable Prime Minister, has also announced a massive economic package, of which I'm very happy to tell you about 15,000 crores would come directly towards health-related issues that concern this particular virus. So with these words now, what is left for us as funding agencies, as R&D funding agencies, is that to create the right framework of R&D. Right. So do we know the virus now? We are trying to look at the biology of the virus and also the targets that can be sort of looked at more carefully. So with the right kind of R&D structure, right kind of R&D environment, and now that unlockdown has begun, many of the researchers would be coming back to the laboratory. It is the best time for the entire scientific community to rise up to the challenge and come up with strategies and interventions which are going to tackle scourge this pandemic in the coming months and year. Back to you.
Right. Thank you, Professor Verma, for setting the tone of this webinar. So now I will take some questions. So first question I would like to ask you is that to what extent do you think our R&D infrastructure is prepared to contain the spread of COVID-19 infection during this period, as we see that the rate of infection is increasing every day? Please tell us about this.
Thank you. So as I just mentioned, that when this virus came into being, when it entered our country, we had very little idea about its biology. We had very little idea about the virus per se, the molecular targets that can be handled by say an antiviral drug, or what kind of shape structure is there so that we can think about vaccines. But now after having gone through, this critical time period in between where we have learned quite a bit about virus. So we now are ready to come in with the right kind of R&D interventions for medical advancements, for disease management, for R&D activities that can contain the upsurge of COVID infection in India. So if you want to look at some specific measures that we have taken as R&D agencies, what we have done is that we have come up with COVID-19 specific R&D calls. We have tried to map R&D support, and we have tried to give facilitation to startups which had ready-made solutions or which had deployable solutions for COVID. So this identity of ready-made solutions, identity of deployable products, and putting it money at the right place has been the first line of response from our side, including ICMR race to the occasion, and it offered rapid clearances. We offered seed support to many of these agents, companies for prototypes, for scaling up of manufacturing infrastructure. And this is in nutshell what we have done so far. If you were to look at more specific situation, what we have done here is that we have constituted COVID task force. We have also launched, or DST, my Department of Science and Technology has launched Kavach initiative with the help of Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, where this NSTEDB, an affiliated institution of DST, has extended support for innovations in startups which are related to, you can think of diagnostics, you can think of devices, bioinformatics, information management systems. So this whole ecosystem has been built up around COVID-19, and many of the support has gone through all agencies or all departments of Ministry of Science and Technology to various stakeholders where research can happen and we can find solutions. And I'll just take a few more minutes to tell you about SERB. So if you look at SERB in particular, SERB was practically the very first agency in country who came up with R&D with COVID specific R&D call. So we realized the gravity of the situation. We created specific or custom calls for R&D in the country, and we came up with our co-research grant proposal. We came up with IRFA, which relates to intensification of research in high priority areas. We also gave a call in Matrix, which is more of mathematics oriented interventions or algorithms that can be brought in for forecasting. So we merged all what we could do from SERB side to ramp up national efforts in affordable diagnostics, in new or anti-purpose antivirals, and for efficacious vaccines. So these solutions have come from us. We have awarded the projects. They are all on our website. The investigators have been informed, and we are hoping that now that unlockdown has begun, we will soon have very quick, rapid, and effective interventions from researchers' side. Back to you, Dr. Pankaj.
Yes, we all are, as a scientific community, aware of the initiative taken by SERB, and a lot of products we have taken in-house being made in India, which were not earlier there. So a lot of support has been given by SERB in that. So coming to the next question, the question is related to the R&D intervention taken by SERB to improve the working environment in sectors where community interactions are inevitable. So what are the R&D initiatives taken?
So one thing is clear to all of us, that when we talk about unlockdown does not mean that the virus has disappeared. Unlockdown doesn't mean that we have won the battle against Corona or COVID. And it certainly doesn't mean that it is business as usual. So when we are looking at our citizens coming back to working environment, coming back to built communities, coming back to workplaces, we have to take enough measures to ensure that when they come back to work or in their working environment, they are practically safe. They are as safe as possible. And for this, quite a number of initiatives have taken. I'll just give you a few examples. One is we have done quite a bit of work, or the agencies, the research groups supported by us have done remarkable work in creating new kind of personal protective equipments First one is mask. For example, a very interesting development was when this tribo e-mask was created by Sense and JNC, where triboelectricity, the static electricity generated by friction between two different type of polymers was being implicated or was being used to neutralize the virus. That is one major success, and we have now licensed it to a company, and hopefully we will have enough of such masks where the working mechanism is different to what we know so far. So triboelectricity. The other one is that we are coming up with microwave-based decontaminating chambers, right? That again is something being done by defense, and UV-based UVC, ultraviolet ray C-based disinfection cabinets, walk-in tunnels, which includes quite a number of steps. When you go through this tunnel, quite a number of steps will come before a person can walk from outside to their working environment. So that is another thing. And finally, if you were to look at that, how are you going to take care of the attendance? That is also important. So one of the breakthrough, or one of the emphasis rather, has been artificial intelligence based recognition modules that are going to read the faces. So they're going to read the faces, and the facial features are going to be verified and used as attendance, so that you can sort of interface these facial features to verify a person, whether you belong in this building or not, whether you belong to a particular department. So as and when we get ready for heading back to our working environment, we will be able to sort of use these technologies. And finally, one thing would be prediction of that how quickly the disease is going to spread. And I am very happy to tell you that DST and SERB have already launched what we call as a national supermodel of disease forecasting. So what we are going to do here is that all mathematics, statistical based, predictions are going to be aggregated on a single platform. And we are going to strive to deliver it to the government, to policymakers, so that they can use these platforms to tell people what kind of spread is anticipated, which is going to be then used by our policymaker, government, and civic bodies to tell as and when it is safe to return to working conditions, working environment, or our built-in spaces. Back to you, Dr. Pooja.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Verma. I see that a lot of initiative has been taken by SERB as well as DST. So little bit digressing from the COVID. So this is the common question which is asked by non-biologist researchers, that we are focusing so much on COVID-19 at present. However, what about our other research and development activities?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Dr. Pankaj, because everybody who is not related directly to the virus, to biology or virology, may seem to think that the entire funding pipeline would possibly go towards antiviral research, and that is fair enough, sort of anxiety. But I would like to use this platform to tell everyone, to sort of assure that the funding pipeline is now a bit digressed towards COVID just because it is a national emergency, or rather it's a global epidemic or pandemic. So it is fair enough to assume that a bit of more focus would be given to COVID in say for another 6 to 8 months time. But I would also like to assure you as a secretary SERB that our programs are not getting affected by COVID funding. In fact, I'd like to tell you that all programs where we had launched calls for fresh proposals, fresh NPDF, or other kind of programs that we have had, we have got a large number of applications that are going to be now screened for funding in the new cycle of funding. So although it is true that funding is being put more into the basket of COVID, but not at the cost of other research, not at the cost of sort of neglecting other important research areas which are very dear to our heart. And of course, we would not do anything. And I would take just 2 examples here of even new programs that have been launched. So in recent times, SERB launched what we call as TETRA. TETRA stands for Tech Translation Award. What it means is that if you ever had a SERB project, and what we usually do with SERB project is that we publish papers. our students are trained and they graduate and they move along and go for sort of for their postdoc, for other training. But what we have decided here is that if you ever had a patent from a SERB project, we will offer you unrestricted sum of money under TETRA, Tech Translation Award, so that your patent can be used to create a prototype. You can create a prototype, you can even start your own startup, you can hook up with an agent, with an industry. So all whatever is required to take up your patent to a TRL level 5 or above will be taken care of by SERB. And that is a brand new scheme. And that is going to be launched in next maybe a month's time. So to lay the anxiety of viewers aside, that newer initiatives are coming into picture and you don't have to worry about it. And we will keep you posted. And as and when developments happen, we are totally connected to you by platforms such as, social media platform to rapidly disseminate your information. And the final program that I just want to touch upon is FIRE. SERB FIRE, which stands for Funds for Industrial Research Engagement. What we have done here is that we are partnering with major industries like Intel and very many other industries to come up with a joint program between SERB and industry-specific research project. And that is hopefully going to be announced very soon. Our investigators can say put 10% of their time, not only to explore basic research or slightly applied research, but they can also put, say, 10% of their time for really heavy duty industrial research where they can really partner with an industry. So we will make it happen. We will make sure that all programs get due attention, and you have my assurance.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure the researchers might be hopeful and positive after listening to your response. So continuity with this same question, there is a question related to the extension of the projects which were going on SERB funded projects. So because of COVID-19, the project progress is halted. So is there any plan for the blanket approval of extension of few months for all the running projects under SERB? And another thing, since the manpower is being paid, even though students are not coming, so will there be any enhancement in the manpower budget and along with the blanket extension of these ongoing projects?
So it's a very loaded question, and I'll definitely endeavor to answer. First of all, you have to believe that the human resource consideration during the lockdown or their extension of the fellowship has not escaped our attention. We are perfectly well aware because I myself come from an institute. I run a lab. I have 20 odd co-workers in my laboratory. So we are all concerned. We are all worried about financial implications. We are also worried about their research environment, their degrees, their training, and so on and so forth. So keeping all this in mind, SERB and DST, because DST also has very many projects. So we have had intense discussions and we have made up a list of recommendations that have to be now vetted by financial considerations that has to come from different source or different department. So what I can assure you is that when this whole crisis started, what measures we have taken is that we are now even trying to release money on provisional utilization certificates. So we have taken provisional utilization certificates. We have given green go ahead to every PI of an ongoing project that please continue till we come up with an office order with an OM, which will clearly reflect what has been decided, what has been funded. So as of now, as we speak, as you and I speak, this discussion in the form of recommendation is with DST, which is the nodal agency for all science departments. You think of any department which is funding a research project, DST would come up with this set of recommendations, including financial implications. And as soon as we get formal approval, everybody who is concerned would be the first people to know. We will post it on our website. We post it on social media, and we will not let people down in terms of, as you say, extension of project or extension of fellowships. But I'll just take 1 minute to provide you an additional information that while we are concerned and worried about all fellowship holders, all human resource involved in current ongoing project, but we should also realize that many new graduates have also applied for, say, for example, NPDF. Many new PIs who have just come from abroad, they have put their first projects. They're hoping to get money from SERB so that they can start their career. So a delicate balance has to be established between ongoing projects, extension of fellowships, and extension of, as say, no cost extension of projects vis-a-vis what are the new application. As I just mentioned, there we have received a large number of applications as if COVID has never happened, right? So we will strike the balance. We will make sure that within the kind of financial austerity that has come down because of the lockdown, because of this great pandemic, we will chart way forward. Everybody will have to tighten their belt a bit, but I am pretty sure that we will overcome. We will make sure that nobody gets shortchanged and nobody is, hopefully nobody is unhappy. Back to you, Dr. Pooja.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, really. Lot of researchers are relieved after listening you on this particularly on this topic. So the next question is the drug repurposing is promising. However, vaccine repurposing is also underway. Example is the polio vaccine. Do you think that this would really work? How optimistic you are as a researcher?
So, so if you look at drug repurposing, a lot of studies are appearing in literature. If you are following for last 3 months, starting for hydroxychloroquine to remdesivir, to almost yesterday we saw a news release about dexamethasone. So all these drugs were developed for something else. Now they are in an acute situation of pandemic. They are being tried for COVID. But at the same time now, this very good question that you have asked is now related to repurposing of vaccines, right? So we all know that prophylactic vaccines are extremely important, almost first line of defense against most of the viral diseases. So one can think about immunization with vaccines and then how they offer you immunity through adaptive and long-term immunity through say a generation of neutralizing antibodies or through natural killer cells that can be generated through these vaccines. So the concept is available with us. We have success stories, and I'm not sure whether your listeners know. Or so I would like to just tell you one thing, because you raised a specific question about polio vaccine, that our Honorable Minister of Science and Technology, who also is the Honorable Minister for Health and Family Welfare, he was the person who piloted what is called as the Pulse Polio program across the country starting in 1994. Right.
Correct.
So this oral polio vaccine, which was the clarion call for most of us when we heard this this nara, basically, right? Do boon zindagi ki.
Yeah.
Do boon zindagi ki, and carrying this vaccine to the farthest corner of the country, so that even the last child gets oral polio vaccine, and we were able to eradicate polio. Right, we were able to eradicate polio, and if you look at WHO commendation, they said this is one of the most significant public health achievement of our lifetime, or of this last, say, 10-20 decades. So with this, I would like to sort of draw your attention. In last few days, this scientific report has come where Gallo, and it's a very celebrated virologist from USA, they have proposed that it is possible that, given the striking similarity of the genome between polio virus and coronavirus, it should be possible if we were to give OPV, or the oral polio vaccine, to people, or sort of give a booster dose, basically. Would it be possible for us to come up with a sort of a temporary solution till a very specific vaccine is discovered? And so looking at the arguments in that paper, looking at what is going on in the literature about vaccination or repurposing of vaccination, I am pretty confident, because if you look at OPV in particular, it has very strong safety record. We all know polio vaccine has very strong safety record. It has extremely low costing vaccine, and we have seen how health workers on their feet have taken these, sort of school baskets, and they have taken OPV vaccine to even villages, to the last house in the village. And about 1 billion dose of OPV has been given or is being given annually to in some 150 odd countries. So if this platform is working, if this platform is going to work fine, so there is no reason for us not to look at the possibility. The way we are looking at repurposed drugs, it should also be possible for us to look at repurposed vaccines, and not just polio vaccine. If you read literature, even the MMR vaccine, which is this measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, they are trying to say that, you know, the kids or the smaller kids who get MMR, they are more protected. And this is a line of thought. You and I will not stick our neck out and sort of bat for MMR, but it is being followed in literature that could MMR provide us a temporary relief or sort of some kind of immunity against coronavirus. And same is true for BCG. Same is true for BCG. So whole bunch of studies are going on, and we hope the way people are now studying the intricate structure of the virus, the structure of the spike protein, for example, of MMR and or the polio virus, there is going to be a good intervention, although it could be a little bit of how shall I say, temporary intervention, because the virus or the vaccine is not going to be specific, but we will have some intervention to move forward. And if I can just tell you one more information on this, that you will be amazed to know that 70% of the world's vaccines are manufactured in India. So India is the biggest manufacturer of vaccines. So they may be discovered or invented elsewhere, but we have gotten the license to manufacture these vaccines. So the take-home message here is that India has manufacturing capabilities. We are manufacturing them with the kind of gold standards that are acceptable in the world by WHO. That is a big deal. Second is that we follow the due regulatory practices, because if that were not the case, we would not be the 70% manufacturer of vaccines in the world. And followed by all this, now we can just think of a vaccine within a fill and finish mode. We can think of providing these vaccines as our delivery and supply chains expand, so that about 8 billion population of the world would get some kind of vaccine at the end of the day. And of course, you have to justify who would get it first, right? You and I would not get it first, because the first people who should get are the first responders, the medical professionals, the police people who are handling these critical patients day in and day out. And as we have done for our soldiers, we take another opportunity to thank our first care responders, who have done a remarkable job, an outstanding job of protecting us, of making sure that despite having a population of 1.3 billion, we are still in a zone which is very, very contained, where we can still say that we, with due precautions, we can still make sure that our population remains sort of COVID-free and remains safe and sound as the time comes. Back to you, Dr. Pankaj.
Yeah, rightly, sir. Probably, as you mentioned, we are in India since childhood, we get a lot of vaccines. So probably that could be one reason the mortality rate in Indians is comparatively very, very low. So coming to the next question, sir, since the dengue season is also coming, India handled COVID-19 very well. So how about how we will handle both the situation at the same time? What are your views on this?
My views come from what I have read, right? So what I have read so far is that at least in Brazil, the dengue infection has risen by 20%, while the country is battling with COVID infection. So the time is actually proper, because when the advent of rainy season, the advent of humidity and high temperatures are the best times for dengue virus to multiply. And one thing we have to make sure that the only difference would possibly be that dengue virus is a vector-borne viral disease. So you have to have a mosquito biting you, right, to have the dengue virus. But at the same time, we have to sort of realize that the temporal coincidence, when you look at the temporal coincidence of happening of dengue and COVID happening at the same time, would actually be quite disastrous, right? So there are a couple of reasons. Not only the mortality or comorbidity would increase, but also that the symptoms are so close to one another. So our medical professionals will have to decipher who to admit, who not to admit, what kind of medications are to be given, because the diagnosis for dengue fever and these first symptoms would be quite similar to COVID. So what we can do, and I'm sure civic bodies have to take action here, is make sure that the vectors are not there. These mosquitoes, which are the carriers of dengue virus, are not there, and we have to intensify surveillance of specifically for dengue, and so surveillance specifically for coronavirus, and make sure that our diagnostics are also up to the up to the mark. We have enough diagnostic kits available uniquely identify which patient is dengue, which patient is COVID, or unfortunately, which patient has both, right? So all this will have to go into, and it is directly in the realm of medical professionals, but we have to do our part in making sure the vectors are as less as possible, and the civic amenities are such that we suppress the growth of these mosquitoes, which can bring dengue to our population. Back to you, Dr.
Correct.
Pooja.
Yeah, correct, sir. In fact, civic bodies are contributing a lot in this time also, and now work for them is going to be up. So there is one question from a research scholar. He's saying that since we are confined to our respective home and research has been halted, how can we compensate our research work for the loss of time due to this lockdown?
So it's a question which has run through many minds, because I also have students who are waiting at home, at various stages of the completion of their PhD. So what I can suggest to this young person is that you have to make the best use of time, because this is an unprecedented time. We have to engage ourselves to make sure that our time, even sitting at home, is not wasted. If we have internet facilities available, if we have high-speed broadband, we should be able to read literature. We should be able to plan our experiment. We should be able to write a few chapters of our thesis. You can contact your supervisor, write a review, for example. So whole lot of academic activities can go on if you have internet facilities. And for some of us, where the internet facilities are slow, they are expensive and whatnot, you can do community service, because this is the moment that, okay, career is one thing, but we are at such a crossroad, at such a intersection in the time, that we really must make sure that our contributions, no matter how minuscule they are towards social to our society. And we do our bit by making masks, by delivering things, or by teaching people, or by making sure that the message, what we discuss, what you read, is going through all, even people who are illiterate, who are not having connection to day-to-day happening in the area of science, in the area of COVID research. So a lot of things can be done, and I'm sure most of our youngsters, they are extremely bright, extremely responsible, with highest regards to their abilities. I'm sure you would find a good way forward by discussing with your supervisors, with your colleagues, with your seniors, and you will make sure that this time, this intermediate time, which you think is a sort of time where you cannot do much, can be used very, very justifiably. Dr. Pankaj.
Yeah.
Sir, coming to the next question from the viewer, the question asked by Saurabh Banerjee. He's asking what type of protocol we have to maintain while working in lab during this pandemic. So are there any guidelines from SERB?
So I would like to tell here that SERB is a funding agency, with the disclaimer basically, and we will not issue any sort of guidelines how laboratories should be run. At the same time, I would tell you that there are competent agencies such as ICMR, Ministry of Health, and individual institutions merging all the information available, guidance available from a Ministry of Health, Home Affairs. The institutions would have to prepare a printed guideline that how laboratories will open, how many students will be coming. So if you have a heterogeneous set in your laboratory, right? Some technicians, some postdoctoral fellows, PhD fellows who are at the final year of their thesis, right? Who are at the first year of their thesis. So you have to work out a plan, or we worked out an exit plan by locking down, right? In unlock down, we have to work out an entry plan, how the laboratories will start running, and how, when you are in the laboratory, how you would conduct yourself so that you minimize infection on your own, and you minimize infection for the colleagues who are working, say, 2 meters away from your research desk. So I would leave this question for the institutions to answer, but my only advice to this young person would be that make sure when you are given a chance to enter back into your laboratory, you follow the protocol to the last detail. Don't make it as we do when we say wear laboratory coat in the lab, and you won't find anybody wearing laboratory coat. Wear shoes in the laboratory, people walking in slippers or sandals, right? So we have to be aware that guidelines are for your own protection, and I'm sure your institution will come up with robust guidelines. Please follow them.
Yeah.
Dr. Pooja.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Verma. In fact, MHA has issued a detailed guideline, and institutes are making their own guideline according to their own requirement. Anyway, so moving forward, Yaspal Singh Katheria from IIT Triple IT Jabalpur is asking, would it somehow be possible for a PI to know the comments of a referee, at least when the proposal is rejected? These comments may help PI to a great deal in redrafting the proposal.
So thanks for that question. What I would like to tell you is that referee comments are most of the time shared. They are shared. So sometimes the PAC comments are shared, the program advisory committee comments are shared. And if you are not satisfied, then you can write back to your member secretary of the program advisory committee of your particular discipline, and they are duty bound to share with you the referee comments, because we all realize as scientists that with every passing year, with every research paper we read, we become better, right? So there is no hesitation on SERB's part to share with you the referee comments. And what we really like to see happen is that you please read the referee comments, which are from your peer group, which are from your scientists with some kind of standing in the community. Use it to make your proposal better. So we welcome such inquiries. Please do contact your member secretary for comments. Dr. Pankaj.
Yeah.
So in continuity to same, there is a question from Mr. Kulkarni. He is asking, submitting a proposal requires lots of document, which is time taking. So is it possible if PI can give an undertaking before the closing date and submit those documents later?
It's a double-edged sword, Mr. Kulkarni, because see, we have experience that once you submit project, getting back additional documents never happens, right? Even for utilization certificate, you can talk to your supervisor, and Dr. Pooja and Dr. Pankaj can also give a bit of credence to what I'm saying, that even getting back utilization certificates, right? Statement of accounts from variety of institutions, so we usually would like to have by May, for example. It comes till November, December, right? So in that situation, see, we are also regulated by certain guidelines. We try to make the process as smooth as possible. And if you can visit our site, if in advance you can see what kind of documentation is required, we also apply for projects. So it will not take a lot of time to supply the right kind of documents. And of course, I just want to mention here, for example, for ethics approval, for bioethics approval, we have been telling people that please do provide provisional document, because sometimes in many institutions, the ethics committee meets only twice a year or once a year. So we do not hold grudge, we do not hold your project. We release the first year of support on a provisional document, but it is important for us to realize the compulsions of the funding agency, which is giving you taxpayers' money, right? When you take taxpayers' money, there is absolute accountability, and we have to respect guidelines. So please take time. Please take time to read the documents, to read the required documents, or the sort of search the required documents, collect them, put it in one folder, just PDF files, and the upload process will be as smooth as possible. So we can work on certain exceptions, but cannot be a rule that you just upload the project and rest of the stuff will come much later. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And coming back to COVID, in fact,
Yeah.
Question is that loosening lockdown has brought in a new wave of COVID-19 outbreak in few countries, including India. In fact, numbers are going up day by day. How do you think in India, how severe this effect will be because of our high population and the diverse nature of our population?
Yeah. That's a very important question, Dr. Pankaj, because as I just mentioned some time back, that unlock down, people have to realize that unlock down doesn't mean that virus has disappeared.
Right.
It has to mean to every one of us that it doesn't mean that if unlock down has been announced by the government, that we have won the battle against virus and it is business as usual. So if we keep these 2-3 things in mind, that virus still lurking out there, and if we are not going to follow the proper procedure, we will infect ourselves, we will infect our family members, our community, our neighbors, and society at large is going to be at risk because of one silly behavior of any person. So what we really are looking at is that we have to follow protocols that are being issued by various agencies. We have to maintain physical distances. Physical distancing, I rather use physical distancing rather than social distancing. So physical distancing is extremely critical. You have to ensure that you are wearing the proper protective gear when you are with people, when you are in a meeting, handling files, handling a lot of these. So when you go and you are working on a computer, maybe somebody else has worked before, right? So you have to make sure that the proper hygiene, meeting protocols are followed. So with a strong commitment from society, with a strong commitment from the citizens who are raring to go back after the unlockdown to the built-in environment, to working environments, we should be able to contain the spread of virus. And of course, what happens otherwise, what happens to people who are little unaware, where markets are being open and people are rushing out, although we are trying to tell everybody by email, our Honorable Prime Minister trying to tell through these various tweets, etc., is that we still consider that unlockdown is merely a respite to make sure that nation moves forward, our economy gets a bit of momentum, rather than making sure that it is business as usual. So with these small measures, small protocols, small sort of consideration, we should be able to contain the spread of virus. I am positive about it, but we need cooperation from everybody. Back to you.
Yes, sir. So coming to the project funding question again from the viewers. The question is asked by Mr. Kiran. So there is a perception that 95% of SERB funding goes to IITs, NITs and ISRs. So could you clarify this perception part? Which is there in the common researchers?
Thanks for asking. This perception is entirely wrong, first of all. See, project funding is basically, when you look at project funding, when you look at the money flowing from your and my taxes back to R&D and research, it is purely on the basis of merit. And since I have joined, I think I can tell you for sure, looking at the trajectory of SERB, quality is paramount to us. The way you have written an innovative project is paramount to us. Even when you apply for initial research grant, for example, it is important that you do not bring your supervisors, your postdoctoral research ideas and try to create a small project for yourself. So I categorically try to tell your viewer, the person who has asked the question, that please be assured that this is not the case. And we are open. In fact, not just IITs, lot of laboratories, whether they are CSIR laboratories, where they are DBT laboratories, they are all supported by us. So simply saying it is IITs and ISAs, it is a wrong perception. Please do not get sort of disheartened by these misconceptions, and please do put your best foot forward. Please do put your best proposal forward. And of course, as one would understand, the amount of money is always limited, right? Not every proposal will get funded, but in a selective grading, not just like everybody doesn't get 95% marks, right? We are, I mean, I didn't get 95% marks. So when you are good, when you understand subject knowledge, when you know the R&D problem better, please apply your mind, please write a good proposal, and do not consider that there is a bias for any institution or any individual. Lastly, I just want to tell you that this question may run through somebody's mind, that in fact, 40% of our success, 40% of SERB proposals is for people 40 and below. You will not believe, young investigators have 40% of the stake in our overall funding mechanism. That is already very good. That tells you that it is a system that supports each and every investigator. Back to you.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to know that 40% are below 40 and 40. Happy. It will ignite many young researchers to
Sure.
put up a good and quality proposal. Next question is, sir, is there any distribution among the research field, like fundamental research, health related research, energy related research, for which SERB proposals are funded?
So you see that we have several program advisory committees through which we create a template for co-research grant. We create templates for very many research programs, right? So we fund in physics, we fund in biology. So in a given discipline, like say, if you take physics, right? There are two separate PACs, one for condensed matter, one for more experimental physics, and one for more theoretical physics. So similarly, we have divided our portion of money assigned to a SERB under very many heads, and we constantly endeavor to bring in new programs so that you do not get stuck with your PAC. So for example, if you are say a biologist, it should not stop you from talking to a computer science person to come up with something innovative and create a new kind of project. So for such kind of individuals who would like to break away from normal boundaries of physics, chemistry, mathematics, geosciences, etc., we have created what we now have just launched, and we got 100 of proposal. It's called exponential technology. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it. There is a new program advisory committee that we have created just last year after I came here. It's called exponential technology, where we have made a restriction that proposals can only be submitted by more than one individual. And that too, they should decidedly come from different disciplines. And at the outset, the problem should be exponential in nature. So if this phrase, this terminology is not clear, please look up in Google, for example, exponential technology. So there is an endeavor to bring in as many people in the fold, bring in blue sky research, what we call as supra. That was our intention, to fund what could be called as, this is really outstanding research questions where you may have a distinct chance of failure. We are even willing to take failure willing to accept failure. You propose something, if you say there is 30% chance of failure, but this is a brilliant, outstanding idea, it is acceptable to us. So supra, now we have the exponential technology. So all these program advisory committees are open to every individual. Please make sure that you apply as per your project, as per your expertise, and we'll be very, very happy to review your proposal. Dr. Pankaj?
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, sir. As you earlier mentioned, if the vaccines are developed, the frontliners will be the one who should get it. So there is a question from Manish Kumar Gupta. What he's asking, so assuming once the vaccines are developed, will it be part of our regular vaccination program? What is the plan of Indian government in this direction?
So I think it will not be proper for me to speak about any policy decision which may happen in future. But what I can already tell you about vaccination, I mean, vaccination strategy is that we are committed, and you may have heard our Honorable Prime Minister on June 4th has committed funding from India in what is called as Gavi. So this is a vaccine initiative at the global level. We have committed money to become a part of global vaccine initiative against COVID, right? So as and when a safe and efficacious vaccine is developed, we will be part of it. The technology, the know-how will be shared with us. And we are also partnering with many other agencies like SEPI, ACT, where vaccination and the research on vaccine strategy is going on. And as I just mentioned, that with the advantage of our manufacturing base, with the advantage of our globally acceptable standards of manufacturing, regulatory practices, our stockpiling efforts, we should be able to contribute very, very positively towards this global vaccination program. But to answer whether it will be part of our regular vaccination, I would like to decline this question. I'm not really probably the best person to answer this question. But yes, if a vaccine is there, people would like to get it as a prophylactic to make sure that one does not suffer from coronavirus, as we have seen for many other vaccines, right? Rabies vaccine, you don't get rabies vaccine, but there are times, prophylactics are given like MMR, BCG. So we'll leave it to specialists to decide. Thank you. Yeah. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Verma. In fact, there is one question which is being asked by INYAS members, I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So thing is this, that
it's an anonymous INYAS member.
Anonymous INYAS member, yeah.
Anonymous INYAS member. So it's a tough question. Okay.
Yeah. Not tough, but probably you are the best person to answer that. Okay, so as you mentioned that the 40% proposals are sanctioned for the age group 40 and below 40. So would it be better if young scientists below 40 or of 40 can also be invited to join PEC to bring new perspective in decision-making process?
Yes, of course. The answer is a resounding yes. And what we have to realize is that the program advisory committee, not just in India, around the world, you rely on the wisdom gathered over a period of time. I'm not talking about age, I'm talking about wisdom, right? So, and what we have done since I joined, that in many of these screenings, in many of PACs, we have very explicitly offered invitation, and some of you were kind enough to be part of it. And some INYAS members also did come and they were part of it. They sat through the screening process. With this, what actually happens is that not only you get to know the process, but you also, when you're sitting at the same table with many other people of variety of shades, sort of shades of in terms of thought processes, in terms of age group, what kind of arguments take place in accepting a proposal for screening or accepting a proposal finally or declining it. So it's a learning curve. And I am very happy. I am in unison with your thoughts that young people must be part of screenings, must be part of decision making wherever possible. And we would actually benefit because nobody stays. It's not a static process. You are young today at one end of the spectrum, but in 5 years from now, you are the decision maker, right? So the experience has to start. You have to gain experience. And I request you, whenever you do get invitation, please do make sure that you join. At times what happens is, and I must tell you, that we send invitations, we get regret that I have this commitment, that commitment, I will not join. But you must find time, even for a day. Please do come, join our processes, make them better. Give us suggestions, write to us, write directly to me, and we'll make sure that we will take this movement and the SERB forward with your help. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Verma. It was really wonderful talking to you. Now we have come to the end, and most of the questions from viewers have been answered by you.
That's great.
At the end, on behalf of INSA, INSA-INYAS colleagues, and on my own behalf, I wish to thank Professor Verma for sharing his time to share his views in such a candid manner. We believe that our viewers, in particular young researchers, have found it very useful and must have addressed their concern on this very relevant topic. For the information of our viewers, I would like to inform you all that Dr. Gagandeep Kang, Thishti, Faridabad, will be our next speaker. We will meet again at the same platform on 27th June at 11 a.m. You can also get this discussion and further updates on our official YouTube channel. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you, Professor Verma, and thank you one and all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Namaskar.
Namaskar.